I talk a lot about used Macs on this channel, and I am a big believer in buying used and keeping older machines going as long as possible. But for today's video, I want to talk about iPhones and why, for many of the same reasons, these things make great smartphones even several years on. Currently, under iOS 13, Apple supports the iPhone 6s and newer. Now, the iPhone 6s came out all the way back in 2015, and Apple has been known to support phones for as long as 6 years. That's a far cry from a lot of Android phones, including Google's own Pixel line, that only guarantees the latest operating systems and updates for 3 years after it's announced. The long support life of iPhones mean that even though they're expensive, they can last you a long time, and buying used can save you big money without sacrificing speed or longevity. Take this iPhone 8 Plus, for example. This one was provided to me by Energy It Shop, which you can check out at the link below. It's a refurbished used model, which means it's in absolutely flawless condition, and it only costs $377. Now, if you shop from individual sellers on eBay or Facebook Marketplace rather than a larger retailer or a large eBay store, you can actually save even more money. You can get them for as low as like $300, but even so, setting that aside, let's take that $377 price tag and examine the value proposition of this phone. Starting with the design, the 8 Plus is definitely looking a little dated. The bezels are of a bygone era of 2 to 3 years ago, and this thing mostly shares its design with the iPhone 6, which came out in 2014. The bezels are honestly the only part of this design that I don't like. I think the rest of it has held up very well, especially with the glass back that you'll find on the 8 and 8 Plus. The display is a very crisp 5.5-inch 1080p Retina LCD with a pixel density of 400 pixels per inch. Now that's less than the 458 ppi you'll get on the iPhone X, XS, 11 Pro, and their Max counterparts, but it's actually more than the also LCD iPhone 11, which has 326 pixels per inch. The display is definitely crisp enough, and for $377, there's really nothing to complain about here. Even though the 8 Plus came out 2 years ago, it doesn't feel lacking for features. We've got wireless charging, we've also got dual cameras, portrait mode, all those features that feel very crisp and very fully featured for a budget device such as this. It's got quick and snappy Touch ID, and the whole thing is powered by Apple's A11 chip that feels as snappy as ever. Seriously, these Apple chips are so far ahead of the rest of the industry. In Geekbench, this 2-year-old smartphone scores nearly identical to the 2-month-old Google Pixel 4. Amazing. So for this video, I switched from my XS Max to the 8 Plus for about 2 weeks or so. And honestly, apart from the slightly dated aesthetics and the smaller display, this thing is really daily drivable and arguably just as functional. The 8 Plus has everything that you would need, albeit without some of the frills you'll get on the newer devices. The newer iPhones might have more screen real estate, more cameras, and smaller bezels, but the 8 Plus is more than capable of doing everything iPhone and doing it well. Do you remember back in the quote-unquote olden days of iPhones with like the 3G through the iPhone 5, where most people kept their phones for about 2 years, and after those 2 years, you could definitely feel the age of the phone. Software updates slowed it down, they started to feel more lethargic. That stuff doesn't really happen as much anymore. It takes 4, 5, 6 years for an iPhone to start really feeling anemic, and even then, there are plenty of people I know that use 2014 iPhones and have no problem. Now, we also have to consider something else when talking about iPhones. Sure, they're undoubtedly expensive when new, but because they hold their value, some of that cost is absorbed. For example, an iPhone XS costs about $575 on average on eBay. That means it lost approximately $424 in value over the last year. If we compare that to a contemporary Google Pixel 3, which cost $800 a year ago, they're worth about $320 now. That's about $480 in depreciation over the past year. So that means that even though the Google Pixel 3 was $200 less expensive when it was new, the iPhone costs less. It's an interesting idea, and obviously the math isn't perfect, it doesn't account for inflation, and it's not going to work out perfectly in every situation compared to other phones and over different periods of time, but it's definitely something that's worth considering when you're purchasing a smartphone. Resale value is a part of the smartphone experience, especially if you purchase your phones outright, and it shouldn't be overlooked. Where iPhones really excel is in midlife resale value. Basically, between year 2 and year 5 of life, they have a very low cost of ownership. Usually they'll only depreciate $100 or $200. So buying a used iPhone such as this 8 Plus is not only cheaper than buying a new one, but gives you a lot of the same essential features you'd expect from iOS, has strong resale value, and is going to be fully supported for at least 3 more years. That is a lot of value for $377. And it makes a used iPhone a very strong contender for the budget-conscious shopper. So that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know down in the comments below, how old is the iPhone that you're currently using if you're using an iPhone? Is it older than the iPhone 8? Let me know down in the comments below, and as usual, don't forget to like and subscribe. Please consider following me on Twitter @LukeMiani, and don't forget to join my subreddit if you get the chance. And with that, I'll see you all in the next video.